Adam Hale had spent years believing he had everything: wealth, power, and complete control over his life. But in a single moment, everything he thought he knew shattered. It wasn't a failed business deal or a rival threatening his empire. It was two little girls, lost and crying in the hallway of his own office building, and the woman he had never expected to see again. He hadn't planned to stop. He hadn't expected to care. But the second he met their wide blue eyes, his blue eyes, and saw the panic in her face, he knew his world had just changed forever. Adam Hale was a man who thrived on order. Every day of his life was structured, carefully planned, and optimized for efficiency. He didn't believe in distractions, didn't allow emotions to interfere with his decisions, and certainly didn't waste time on things that didn't serve a purpose. That was how he had built his empire, through focus, determination, and an unwavering belief that success was the only thing that mattered. But all of that came to a sudden, unexpected halt the moment he stepped into the hallway of his corporate headquarters and saw two little girls standing against the wall, their small hands clutched together, their wide blue eyes filled with tears. They were no older than 4, their matching dark hair slightly messy as if they had been running around. Both were dressed in simple white t-shirts, their tiny shoulders trembling as they whispered to each other. Adam was already running late for an important call. He should have kept walking, should have let security or one of the assistants handle it. But something about the scene made him pause. The taller of the two, though only by a fraction, rubbed her eyes, trying to hold back tears, while the other sniffled and gripped the hem of her sister's shirt. He let out a quiet sigh. Against his better judgment, he stepped forward. "Are you lost?" he asked, keeping his tone even, careful not to startle them. Both girls looked up at him, blinking, as if just realizing he was there. The one with slightly curlier hair nodded hesitantly, her lip quivering. "We can't find Mommy," the other whispered, her voice barely above a breath. Adam frowned. He had seen plenty of children in the building before. Executives sometimes brought their kids in for a quick visit or during an emergency, but these two didn't seem like they belonged to anyone from his team. They didn't have the polished appearance of children who came from wealth. There was something different about them, something that tugged at him in a way he didn't quite understand. He crouched down, leveling his gaze with theirs. "Do you know your mom's name?" The first girl hesitated before speaking. "Mommy's name is Sophia." Adam's chest tightened. It was a common enough name, but something about it made his stomach twist uncomfortably. "Sophia what?" he pressed, trying to keep his voice calm. The girls exchanged a glance, and for the first time, the one who had been quieter spoke. "Walsh." A strange sensation crawled down Adam's spine. That name, he knew it. He straightened up abruptly, his mind racing. Sophia Walsh. It couldn't be. He turned back to the girls, his heart pounding harder than it should have. "Your mom works here?" he asked, his voice a little sharper than before. The girls nodded in unison. "She cleans," the first girl said softly. "She said we had to stay close, but we got lost." Adam's breath caught in his throat. A memory, one he had buried deep, resurfaced against his will, flashes of a woman with long brown hair and piercing blue eyes, laughter shared in the quiet of the night, whispered promises that had never been fulfilled. And then, just as quickly as she had come into his life, she was gone. No explanations. No goodbyes. Just vanished. And now, standing in front of him, were two little girls with the same blue eyes. His blue eyes. His entire world tilted on its axis. Before he could say another word, his office door swung open. His assistant, looking slightly flustered, rushed toward him. "Mr. Hale, one of the cleaning staff is searching for her children. She's in a panic." Adam didn't move, his mind still trying to catch up with what was happening. The assistant hesitated before continuing. "Her name is Sophia Walsh." The words hit him like a freight train. He looked back at the girls, who were now watching him curiously, unaware of the storm that had just erupted inside him. The pieces fit together so perfectly, so undeniably, that he didn't understand how he hadn't seen it the second he laid eyes on them. These weren't just two lost little girls. They were his little girls. And he had never even known they existed. Adam barely had time to process the revelation before the office door swung open again. This time, a woman rushed in, her breath coming in short gasps, her wide blue eyes scanning the room frantically. The second she spotted the girls, relief washed over her face, and she ran straight toward them, dropping to her knees and pulling them into a tight embrace. "Oh my God, are you okay?" she whispered, pressing kisses to their dark hair as they clung to her. "I was so scared. I told you to stay close to me." The girls mumbled apologies into her shoulder, their little hands gripping the fabric of her uniform. Adam didn't move. He couldn't. He could only stand there, watching the scene unfold before him, feeling as if the ground had shifted beneath his feet. Sophia Walsh. She was exactly how he remembered her, long brown hair slightly curled at the ends, those same piercing blue eyes, the ones that had once looked at him with warmth, now filled with exhaustion and something else, something defensive. She was wearing a simple uniform, a cleaning service logo embroidered on the chest, and that alone sent another jolt of disbelief through him. He had spent years building a life of success, years reaching a level of power and influence that most people could only dream of. Meanwhile, she had been here, in his own building, scrubbing floors and cleaning offices. With his children. His daughters. Sophia finally looked up, as if sensing his eyes on her. The relief in her expression vanished the moment she saw him. For a long, tense moment, neither of them spoke. The air between them was thick, charged with something that neither of them had prepared for. Then, quietly, almost cautiously, she said his name. "Adam." It was barely a whisper, but it carried the weight of 5 years of silence, of unanswered questions, of a truth that had been kept from him. He forced himself to breathe, forced himself to swallow the 100 questions burning at the back of his throat. "They got lost," he said, his voice lower than he intended. "I found them in the hallway." Sophia's fingers tightened around the girl's shoulders. I only turned away for a second," she said quickly, as if bracing for some kind of judgment. "I bring them with me sometimes when I have late shifts. They usually stay in the break room, but today they wandered off, and..." Adam held up a hand, stopping her. "They're okay," he said, his gaze never leaving hers. "That's what matters." Sophia exhaled slowly, as if she had been expecting a different reaction from him. She nodded, brushing a hand over Emma's hair before rising to her feet, keeping both girls close. She looked smaller than he remembered, not in stature, but in the way she carried herself. The confident, fiery woman he had once known now stood before him looking wary and guarded, as if preparing for a fight she wasn't sure she could win. Adam knew he should be asking a million things right now: why she never told him, why she left, why she had been raising his daughters alone all these years. But none of those words made it past his lips. Instead, he looked down at the girls, who were now peering up at him with innocent curiosity. "They said your name was Sophia," he murmured, his voice quieter now. "They didn't say anything about me." Sophia flinched, her fingers curling into the fabric of her uniform. "No," she admitted softly. "They wouldn't." The weight of that truth settled deep in his chest. His own children hadn't even known his name. He dragged a hand down his face, trying to keep his thoughts from spiraling. He was a man who built his life around control, who prided himself on knowing everything happening in his world. And yet, for the past 4 years, his world had been incomplete, and he hadn't even realized it. Emma shifted slightly, glancing between him and Sophia. "Mommy," she said cautiously, her voice small. "Is he mad?" Sophia's lips parted, as if searching for the right words, but Adam was the one who answered first. "No," he said, shaking his head. "I'm not mad. He wasn't even sure what he was. Angry? Shocked? Devastated? Maybe all of it. Maybe none of it. Eliza tilted her head. Then why do you look like that? Adam let out a breathless chuckle, shaking his head again. Because I just found out that I have 2 daughters, he said honestly. And I don't really know what to do about it yet. The girls blinked, their identical blue eyes widening slightly. Sophia looked as if she wanted to say something, maybe to cut in, maybe to stop this from happening too fast, but Emma spoke first. We don't have a daddy, she said simply. The words hit him harder than he expected. Sophia flinched again. Adam crouched down to their level, his throat tightening as he met their curious stares. I think maybe you do, he said, his voice quieter now. You just didn't know it yet. Eliza studied him for a long moment. Then, in the way that only a child could, she asked the question that mattered most. Are you gonna leave now? Adam's chest ached. He knew, without needing to ask, that she wasn't just talking about today. He looked at Sophia again. For the first time since she had walked through that door, she wasn't just guarded, she looked afraid. Afraid of his answer. Afraid of what would happen next. So he made his choice. No, he said firmly. I'm not leaving. Eliza still looked uncertain, so he added, not now. Not ever. Sophia's breath hitched, but she didn't say anything. Emma's tiny fingers curled into the hem of her shirt. You promise? Adam nodded. I promise. For the first time, something in the girls' faces softened, as if they wanted to believe him. Sophia, however, looked like she wasn't sure whether to believe it at all. And Adam knew, without a doubt, that proving it to her would be the hardest part of all. Adam spent the rest of the day trying to process what had just happened, but no matter how many times he replayed the conversation, it always led back to the same impossible truth: he had daughters. 2 beautiful, intelligent little girls who had lived their entire lives without knowing who he was. He had spent years building a business empire, making decisions that shaped entire industries, yet the most important thing in his life had been happening without him. The weight of that realization settled deep in his chest as he sat in his office, staring blankly at the skyline outside his window. He had always prided himself on being in control, on knowing everything there was to know about his world. But now, for the first time, he felt like a stranger in his own life. He had missed their first words, their first steps, their birthdays. He had missed everything. A knock on the door pulled him from his thoughts. His assistant, Jessica, peeked inside, her usual composed expression tinged with uncertainty. Mr. Hale, Ms. Walsh is here to see you. Adam sat up straighter, pushing aside the emotions threatening to consume him. Send her in. A moment later, Sophia stepped into the office, looking hesitant but determined. She had changed out of her uniform, her brown hair pulled back into a simple ponytail. There was no trace of the woman he had once known, the fiery, confident Sophia who had challenged him at every turn. Instead, she stood before him as someone entirely different, someone who had spent the last 5 years carrying a secret that should have been his to share. He gestured toward the chair across from his desk. Sit. Sophia hesitated before finally lowering herself into the seat, her hands folded tightly in her lap. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Finally, Adam leaned forward, his voice calm but firm. Why didn't you tell me? Sophia exhaled slowly, as if she had been bracing for this exact question. I wanted to, she admitted. At first. His jaw tightened. But you didn't. She looked down at her hands. No. Silence stretched between them, thick with everything that had gone unsaid over the years. Adam didn't want to feel angry, but the resentment was there, simmering beneath the surface. He had been robbed of something he could never get back. Sophia finally met his gaze. When I found out I was pregnant, you were already gone. You had moved on to bigger things, bigger plans. I knew how much your career meant to you. And she hesitated, swallowing hard. I didn't want to trap you. Adam's fingers curled into his desk. Trap me? His voice was sharp now, incredulous. Do you really think I would have seen my children as a trap? Sophia flinched, but she held his gaze. I didn't know what you would have done, Adam. And I was scared to find out. His breath came in slow, measured inhales. He wasn't the same man he had been 5 years ago. Back then, maybe he had been too focused on his work, too determined to climb higher and higher. Maybe he wouldn't have been ready. But she had never even given him the chance to decide for himself. They think they don't have a father, he said quietly, his voice laced with something raw. Do you have any idea what that felt like? Hearing those words come out of their mouths. Sophia looked down again, her hands tightening into fists. I did what I thought was best for them. And what about what was best for me? His voice wasn't loud, but it carried the full weight of his frustration. Did you ever think about that? Did you ever consider that maybe I had the right to know? Tears pooled in her blue eyes, but she didn't let them fall. I thought about it every single day. Adam leaned back in his chair, exhaling sharply. He wanted to be furious with her. He wanted to yell, to demand answers, to make her understand what she had taken from him. But at the same time, he couldn't ignore the exhaustion in her eyes, the guilt she was carrying. She hadn't done this to be cruel. She had done it because she had truly believed she was protecting their daughters. That didn't make it hurt any less. He ran a hand down his face, forcing himself to focus on what really mattered. They need to know the truth, he said finally. They need to know who I am. Sophia nodded slowly. I know. Then when? She hesitated. I don't want to overwhelm them. They're still so young, and they've never had a father in their lives. It's not something they'll understand overnight. Adam clenched his jaw but forced himself to stay calm. So what do you suggest? Sophia took a deep breath, choosing her words carefully. We start small. You spend time with them, little by little. Let them get used to you before we tell them everything. It wasn't enough. Not for him. He wanted to hold them, to hear them call him dad, to make up for the years he had missed. But he also knew he couldn't rush this. If he forced his way in, it could backfire, and the last thing he wanted was for his daughters to feel afraid of him. Fine, he said at last. But I want to be involved. In everything. I don't want to be some stranger they see once in a while. I want to be their father. Sophia's lips parted slightly, as if she hadn't expected his response. After a long pause, she gave a small nod. Okay. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't what he wanted. But it was a start. And he was going to fight for every moment he had left with them. Adam didn't know what to expect when he arrived at the park the next afternoon. He had spent the entire night thinking about how this meeting would go, replaying every possible scenario in his mind. Would the girls be shy? Would they be hesitant? Would they even want to talk to him at all? He had spent years negotiating million-dollar deals, making decisions that affected entire industries, but for the first time in his life, he had no idea how to navigate what was in front of him. Sophia was already there when he arrived, sitting on a bench near the playground. She had her arms crossed, watching as Emma and Eliza played on the swings, their small legs kicking against the air. They looked so carefree, so unaware of how much their world was about to change. When she noticed him approaching, Sophia stood, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. You're early, she said softly. Adam gave a small shrug, his gaze drifting toward the girls. Didn't want to be late. Sophia studied him for a moment before nodding toward the playground. They know someone is coming to play with them today, she explained. But I didn't tell them who. Adam's chest tightened. He understood why she had done it that way, but it didn't make it any easier to hear. His own daughters didn't even know they were waiting for their father. Sophia hesitated before adding, I wanted to see how they reacted to you first, without pressure. He swallowed hard, forcing himself to push down the frustration threatening to rise. This wasn't about him. This was about Emma and Eliza. Taking a deep breath, he nodded. Okay. Sophia gestured toward the swings. Go. Adam walked forward, his footsteps slow, deliberate. The girls were too busy laughing to notice him at first, their little voices filling the air as they swung higher and higher. It was Eliza who spotted him first. She slowed her swing slightly, tilting her head as she studied him with the same careful curiosity she had shown in his office the day before. Emma followed her gaze, her bright blue eyes widening just a little. For a moment, none of them spoke. Then, Emma furrowed her brow. Hey, she said. I know you. Adam felt something catch in his throat. Yeah. She nodded. You're the man from the office. Eliza kicked her legs a little, making her swing move slightly. The one who found us. Adam smiled, shoving his hands into his pockets. That's me. The girls exchanged a glance, the kind of silent communication that only twins seem to understand. Emma was clearly the more outspoken of the two, because she turned back to him and asked, Why are you here? It was such a simple question, but it hit him harder than he expected. He couldn't tell them the truth. Not yet. He couldn't just say, I'm here because I'm your father. Because I should have been here all along, ***. Instead, he crouched down so he was at eye level with them. Your mom said you might need a new friend. Emma narrowed her eyes slightly, as if assessing whether or not he was a worthy candidate. Do you know how to push a swing? Adam let out a breathless laugh, relieved by the unexpected shift in the conversation. I think I can figure it out. Eliza smiled. Okay. But not too high. Adam positioned himself behind them, giving them both a gentle push. They squealed with delight, their laughter echoing through the park. Sophia sat back down on the bench, watching with an unreadable expression. Adam wasn't sure how long they stayed there. All he knew was that, for the first time, he wasn't thinking about work, about meetings, about anything other than the sound of his daughters laughing. By the time they climbed off the swings, both girls were slightly breathless, their cheeks flushed with excitement. Emma plopped down in the grass and looked up at him. You're not bad at playing, she admitted. Eliza nodded in agreement. Yeah. You're kinda fun. Adam felt something shift inside him, something he couldn't quite put into words. He had spent so much of his life chasing things, success, power, control. But right now, sitting in the grass with his daughters, listening to them giggle as they poked at the flowers around them, he realized something. For the first time in a long time, he wasn't chasing anything. For the first time, he was exactly where he needed to be. Adam hadn't expected things to feel so natural. He had assumed there would be awkwardness, hesitation, maybe even distance. But as he sat in the grass with Emma and Eliza, watching them pluck tiny white flowers and weave them into makeshift crowns, he realized just how easily they had let him in. They didn't know who he really was, not yet, but they weren't afraid of him. Emma sat cross-legged beside him, carefully looping stems together with impressive focus. Every now and then, she would pause to inspect her work, making sure each flower was positioned just right before continuing. Eliza, on the other hand, seemed more interested in collecting as many flowers as possible, her small hands full of them as she grinned proudly at her growing pile. I think I'm better at this than you, Emma said, squinting at her half-finished crown. Eliza wrinkled her nose. You're only better because I'm letting you be. Adam smirked. That sounds like something a little sister would say. Emma gasped, turning to face him with a scandalized expression. We're the same age. Eliza nodded seriously. We're twins, remember? Adam held up his hands in mock surrender. Right, my mistake. So which one of you is the older twin? Emma straightened her shoulders proudly. Me. By 2 minutes. Eliza huffed. But that doesn't count. Emma turned to Adam for support. It totally counts, right? Adam chuckled, watching the way they bickered so easily, like it was second nature. He had missed this, missed knowing them, missed being a part of their everyday lives. If you say so, he said, playing along. But 2 minutes isn't much. Emma beamed as if she had won an argument, while Eliza stuck out her tongue before returning to her flowers. After a few more minutes of quiet concentration, Emma carefully placed her completed flower crown onto her head and turned to Adam. What do you think? He studied her with mock seriousness, tilting his head. Looks pretty good. But I think you're missing something. Emma frowned, reaching up to adjust the flowers. What? Adam plucked a tiny daisy from Eliza's pile and tucked it gently behind Emma's ear. There. Now it's perfect. Emma giggled, touching the flower lightly before grinning at him. Okay, your turn. Eliza's eyes lit up as she scrambled to gather the best flowers from her collection. We should make him one too. Adam hesitated. I don't know if I'm a flower crown kind of guy. Emma gave him a stern look. Too bad. You played on the swings with us, so now you have to wear the crown. Eliza nodded enthusiastically. Yeah. It's only fair. Adam sighed dramatically. Fine. But if anyone asks, I was forced. Both girls laughed as they got to work, carefully placing flowers together, whispering to each other as they built the crown with exaggerated seriousness. Adam sat there, letting them do as they pleased, feeling an unfamiliar warmth settle in his chest. He had spent so much of his life making decisions, controlling outcomes, making sure everything was exactly the way he wanted it. But here, sitting with his daughters, letting them decorate him with flowers like some kind of royal garden experiment, he realized something. For the first time in years, he wasn't in control. And somehow, that didn't bother him at all. When they finally finished, Emma proudly placed the crown onto his head and took a step back to admire their work. Okay, now you look like a king. Eliza clapped her hands together. The King of Flowers. Adam chuckled. I'm not sure how I feel about that title. Emma grinned. Well, that's your name now. No take-backs. Before Adam could protest, Sophia's voice called from a few feet away. Girls, it's getting late. Emma and Eliza groaned in unison. Already? Sophia walked toward them, her arms crossed, but there was amusement in her eyes as she looked at Adam. Nice crown. Adam exhaled, shaking his head as he lifted the flowers from his head. Apparently, I didn't have a choice. Sophia smirked. Welcome to parenting. Emma grabbed his hand before he could stand. Will you come back tomorrow? Eliza looked up at him with wide, hopeful eyes. Please. Adam glanced at Sophia, who watched him carefully but said nothing. She wasn't stopping them. She wasn't telling them not to ask. He looked back at his daughters, at the way they waited for his answer like it was the most important thing in the world. He smiled. Yeah. I'll be here. Emma cheered, throwing her arms around his neck in an unexpected hug. Eliza followed a second later, and for the first time, Adam felt the full weight of what he had almost missed. They didn't know who he really was yet. They didn't know what he had been to them all along. But they knew one thing. He was here now. And he wasn't going anywhere. The next day, Adam arrived at the park earlier than planned. He wasn't sure why, maybe because, for the first time in years, he actually felt excited about something outside of work. It was unfamiliar but not unwelcome. As he sat on a bench, waiting, he thought about how quickly things had changed. Just days ago, he hadn't even known Emma and Eliza existed. Now, they were the only thing on his mind. When Sophia arrived with the girls, they spotted him instantly. Emma was the first to react, breaking into a run toward him. Eliza followed right behind her, her small arms pumping as she tried to keep up. "You came!" Emma cheered, skidding to a stop in front of him. "Told you I would," Adam said, standing up. Eliza beamed. "And you're not late." Sophia, who had been walking at a more reasonable pace, finally reached them, giving him an approving nod. "Punctual. That's a good sign." Adam smirked. "Did you expect anything less?" Sophia rolled her eyes but didn't argue. The girls immediately pulled him toward the playground, each grabbing one of his hands. "We're playing tag today," Emma announced. "And you're it," Eliza added before she and her sister took off running. Adam let out a breath of laughter, watching them for a second before jogging after them. They squealed in delight, dodging behind slides and climbing onto platforms to escape his reach. He could have caught them easily, of course, but he let them win a few rounds, enjoying their laughter as they taunted him from a safe distance. After a while, they flopped down onto the grass, exhausted but happy. Adam sat beside them, catching his breath. Sophia was a few feet away, watching with an unreadable expression. "Okay," Emma said, sitting up. "We have questions." Adam raised an eyebrow. "Questions?" Eliza nodded. "You're our friend now, so we need to know things." He leaned back on his elbows. "All right. Fire away." Emma narrowed her eyes. "Do you like ice cream?" Adam smirked. "Who doesn't?" Eliza grinned. "What's your favorite flavor?" He pretended to think about it. "Chocolate." Emma gasped. "Wrong answer." Eliza giggled. "It's vanilla or nothing." Adam chuckled. "I'll keep that in mind." The questions continued: favorite color, favorite animal, favorite superhero. He answered each one, watching as they carefully took mental notes, as if they were deciding whether or not he was worthy of their trust. Then Emma tilted her head. "Do you have kids?" The question caught him off guard. His stomach tightened, and he glanced at Sophia, who was suddenly very still. He could see the warning in her eyes, but he didn't need it. He wasn't going to drop the truth on them like this. "No," he said carefully. "Not until now." Emma frowned. "What do you mean?" Adam hesitated, searching for the right words. "I mean, I've never known kids like you before." Eliza considered this, then nodded. "Okay. Next question." Sophia exhaled softly, relaxing slightly. The rest of the afternoon passed in easy conversation and laughter. When it was time to leave, the girls hugged him without hesitation, their small arms wrapping around his waist as they mumbled quick goodbyes before running off to the car. Sophia lingered behind, watching him carefully. "You handled that well." Adam met her gaze. "I meant what I said. I'm not rushing this." Sophia nodded slowly. "I know. And I appreciate it." He hesitated before asking, "Did you tell them anything yet?" She shook her head. "Not yet. But soon." Adam exhaled. "I hope so." As he watched them drive away, he realized something. He wasn't just trying to be part of their lives. He already was. Adam had never been a patient man. He was used to making decisions quickly, closing deals efficiently, and moving on to the next big thing without hesitation. But this, waiting for Sophia to tell the girls the truth, felt like the longest wait of his life. He understood why she was hesitant. Emma and Eliza's world had always been just the two of them and their mother. To introduce a father they had never known, a father they hadn't even realized was missing, would change everything. But that didn't make the waiting any easier. The next afternoon, when he arrived at the park, he immediately noticed that the atmosphere was different. The girls weren't their usual energetic selves, and Sophia looked as though she hadn't slept much the night before. Emma was sitting on the swing, slowly kicking at the dirt, while Eliza sat cross-legged on the grass, plucking blades of grass between her fingers. There was none of the usual excitement when they saw him, no eager smiles or immediate games. His stomach tightened. Sophia met his gaze, then nodded slightly, just enough to let him know that the conversation had finally happened. His heart pounded harder than it should have. He had imagined this moment for days, had tried to prepare himself for every possible reaction, but now that it was here, he felt completely unprepared. He walked over slowly, crouching down next to Eliza first. "Hey, Peanut," he said gently, using the same nickname he had heard Sophia call her once. "You okay?" Eliza didn't answer right away. She just looked at him for a long moment, her blue eyes searching his face as if trying to piece something together. Then, finally, she whispered, "Is it true?" Adam swallowed hard. "What part?" Eliza took a deep breath, glancing at her sister before looking back at him. "That you're our daddy." His throat felt tight, but he nodded. "Yeah, sweetheart. It's true." Emma finally spoke from the swing. "But where were you?" It was the question he had been dreading the most. Not because he didn't have an answer, but because no answer would ever feel good enough. He turned to face her, his voice steady but soft. "I didn't know about you," he admitted. "I didn't know you existed until a few days ago." Emma frowned. "But how?" Adam hesitated, glancing at Sophia, who was standing a few feet away, watching closely. He could tell she was ready to step in if things got too overwhelming, but he needed to handle this himself. "Sometimes adults make choices because they think they're doing the right thing," he said carefully. "And sometimes, those choices mean that things don't happen the way they should." Eliza played with a piece of grass, considering his words. "Mommy didn't tell you?" Adam exhaled. "No, she didn't." Emma looked at Sophia, then back at him. "Are you mad?" He shook his head immediately. "No. Not at you." Emma studied him, her small fingers gripping the chains of the swing. "So what happens now?" It was such a simple question, but it carried the weight of everything. Adam shifted so he was sitting fully on the grass, facing both of them. "That's up to you," he said honestly. "I don't want to rush you into anything. I know this is a lot to take in. But I want to be here. I want to know you. And I want you to know me." Eliza tilted her head. "Like a daddy?" Adam's chest ached. "Yeah. Like a daddy." Emma kicked at the dirt again, deep in thought. Then, after what felt like an eternity, she finally asked, "Do daddies come to school plays?" Adam's lips twitched slightly. "They do if their daughters want them to." Eliza perked up. "And do they help build stuff?" Adam nodded. "Absolutely." Emma crossed her arms. "And do they like vanilla ice cream?" Adam let out a low chuckle. "Even if they don't, they'll pretend to." The girls exchanged another look, their silent twin conversation happening right in front of him. Then, as if they had reached an unspoken agreement, Eliza scooted closer and rested her small hand on his knee. "Okay," she said simply. Emma wasn't far behind. She slid off the swing, stepping toward him hesitantly before finally leaning against his side, her tiny arms wrapping around him in an uncertain but deliberate hug. Adam barely had time to process it before Eliza wrapped her arms around his other side, hugging him just as tightly. His throat burned as he closed his eyes, breathing them in, feeling the warmth of them against him. He had spent his entire life chasing things that he thought mattered: success, power, control. But in this moment, sitting in the grass with his daughters clinging to him, he realized he had never truly known what it meant to have something worth holding on to. Sophia wiped at her eyes discreetly, watching them from a distance. Adam met her gaze over the tops of the girls' heads, and for the first time, she didn't look hesitant. She just nodded, as if silently acknowledging what had just happened. They weren't strangers anymore. They were family. Adam had always believed that life was about control. Every decision he made, every path he took, was carefully calculated to ensure success. He built an empire from nothing, made his name one of the most powerful in the business world, and ensured that nothing, nothing was left to chance. But now, as he stood in Sophia's small apartment, helping Emma and Eliza put together a puzzle on the floor, he realized that the most important thing in his life was something he never planned for. The past week had been a whirlwind. Since the day the girls had learned the truth, everything had changed. They still asked questions, lots of them. Emma wanted to know every detail about where he lived, what he did, and why he hadn't figured out he had daughters sooner. Eliza was quieter about it, more thoughtful, but she had a way of watching him as if she were studying him, trying to determine if he really meant what he said. He had expected it to be difficult, but in some ways, it wasn't. They had already accepted him before they even knew he was their father. The difference now was that there was something more between them. Something real. Adam picked up one of the puzzle pieces, handing it to Eliza, who was sitting in his lap as she focused intently on finishing the edges. "I think this one goes here," he said, pointing to an open spot. Eliza wrinkled her nose. "No, that's the wrong color." Emma, lying on her stomach beside them, smirked. "You're bad at this." Adam chuckled. "I've never been great at puzzles." Eliza finally found the right piece and pressed it into place with satisfaction. "That's okay. You can practice with us." Adam felt something warm settle in his chest. "I'd like that." From the kitchen, Sophia leaned against the counter, watching them with an unreadable expression. At first, when he had suggested coming over to spend time with the girls, she had been hesitant. But when the girls had practically begged her to let him stay for dinner, she had given in. Now, as she watched him sit on the floor in his expensive slacks, surrounded by puzzle pieces and stuffed animals, he could tell she wasn't quite sure what to make of it. Emma suddenly perked up. "Can we have a sleepover at Daddy's house?" Adam's heart clenched at the word. Daddy, they had only started using it in the past day or two, and every time they did, it hit him like a wave. Sophia stiffened slightly. "Emma." Adam held up a hand, stopping her gently. "Would you want that?" he asked carefully, looking at both of them. Eliza nodded immediately. "Yes." Emma grinned. "We could build a fort and stay up late." Sophia sighed, rubbing her temples. "Let's take things one step at a time, okay?" Emma groaned. "But, Mommy." Sophia gave her a look, and Emma quickly fell silent. Adam glanced at Sophia, understanding what she wasn't saying. This was new for all of them. As much as he wanted to bring the girls into his world fully, he knew that forcing it too fast would only make things harder. "How about we plan a day first?" he suggested. "You come over, see where I live, and if you like it, we can talk about a sleepover." Emma considered this, then nodded. "Deal." Eliza yawned, leaning her head against his chest. "I'm tired." Adam instinctively wrapped an arm around her, running his hand gently over her hair. She didn't pull away. Instead, she sighed contentedly, her tiny fingers playing with the sleeve of his shirt. Sophia watched them, something unreadable flickering across her face. Finally, she pushed off the counter and walked over. "All right, girls, bedtime." Emma pouted. "But we're not done." Sophia crossed her arms. "The puzzle will still be here tomorrow." Eliza hesitated before slowly pulling away from Adam's embrace. "Can you tuck us in?" she asked, looking up at him with hopeful eyes. Adam felt his throat tighten. He wasn't sure why that was the thing that made it feel so real, but it was. Tucking them in. A simple thing, something a father did every night, something he had never done for them before. He swallowed hard and nodded. Yeah. I'd love to. Sophia didn't protest as he followed them to their room, a small space with twin beds pushed against opposite walls, covered in blankets decorated with tiny stars and stuffed animals piled high. Emma climbed into bed first, immediately pulling the covers up to her chin. "Good night, Daddy." There it was again. Adam bent down and pressed a kiss to the top of her head. "Good night, sweetheart." Eliza waited until he sat beside her, then hesitated. "Are you coming back tomorrow?" Adam brushed a stray curl from her face, his chest aching. "Do you want me to?" She nodded. "Yes." He smiled. "Then I'll be here." She closed her eyes, satisfied with that answer. Sophia stood in the doorway, watching as he turned off the small nightlight and quietly stepped out of the room. Neither of them spoke as he followed her back to the living room. Finally, Sophia exhaled, crossing her arms. "I wasn't sure this was going to work," she admitted. Adam met her gaze. "And now?" She hesitated. "They love you already." Adam swallowed. "I love them too." Sophia studied him for a long moment. "Then don't disappear." He stepped closer. "I won't." She held his gaze, searching for something in his expression. Whatever it was, she must have found it, because she finally gave a small nod. "Okay." Adam exhaled, feeling something settle inside him. For the first time in his life, he had something real. Something worth more than all the money, all the success, all the control he had ever chased. He had them. And he wasn't going anywhere. The ending of this story is powerful because it isn't just about Adam discovering he has daughters, it's about transformation, redemption, and the realization that true success isn't measured in wealth or power but in the people we choose to show up for. From the beginning, Adam was a man who controlled everything in his life, believing that his business empire defined him. But when he meets Emma and Eliza, he is forced to confront the fact that he has been missing something far more important. The journey isn't just about reconnecting with them, it's about proving, to both them and to Sophia, that he is someone who will stay. Sophia's role is just as significant. She spent years believing she was making the right choice by keeping Adam out of their lives, but as she watches him bond with the girls, she has to acknowledge that maybe she was wrong. Her hesitation isn't out of spite but out of fear, fear that Adam will leave, that the girls will get hurt, that the stability she built for them will crumble. Seeing her lower her guard and allow Adam in is just as much a part of the story's resolution as the girls accepting him. The final scene, where Adam tucks them in, is simple but incredibly meaningful. It's not a grand gesture, not an over-the-top declaration, but something small and intimate. It shows that love isn't just about promises, it's about consistency, about being there in the quiet moments, about proving through actions rather than words. This story is a reminder that family isn't just about biology, it's about showing up. Adam may have missed the first 4 years of his daughters' lives, but the real victory is that he refuses to miss any more. The past can't be rewritten, but the future is something he can build. And in the end, that's what truly matters.